What's up, everybody? Ron Sparkman here from Stardom, and today we are starting Season 3 of our interview series. And today we actually have a special one. We're going to start with Part 1 of our interview with Fit Rocket Scientist. He's just so interesting and has so many cool things to talk about that we ended up doing almost an hour. So we're going to split it into two for you, make it for easy listening and watching. And you guys make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys on Part 2. What's up, everybody? This is Ron Sparkman from Stardom, and my guest today is the one and only Fit Rocket Scientist, Kevin DeBruin. For those that have checked out maybe our Space and Science and Sci-Fi Summit from last fall, you may have already been introduced to Kevin, but if you have not, man, he has got one hell of a story. So we're going to start off with just a bit of an introduction to kind of let you guys know who he is, but we're going to really let Kevin dive into it. So real fast, Kevin is a science communicator. He's a rocket scientist, a fitness enthusiast, a motivational influencer, and honestly, so much more. The list for him goes on and on. But we're going to let him share that story with us because he tells it so well. And more and more, I think it's going to get to the point that everybody's just going to know the story because it's that inspiring. So, Kevin, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Oh, thank you, Ron. It's a pleasure to be here.
And man, you've been up to so much. So before we get into the deep stuff and all the crazy missions that are coming up this year and in the future, we want to start a little bit with you and a little bit about who you are and why you were inspired. So you're so accomplished, and honestly, you make it look easy. But for those of us that know you really well, it's definitely not been easy. It's been a long road. So let's start a little bit with how it all began. What first inspired you to on the path that you're on right now?
We got to go way back to like 18 years ago. When I was 10 years old, I saw the movie October Sky. If you haven't seen it, one, shame on you. Two, it is based upon a true story, Rocket Boys, of a young boy who sees Sputnik, the first satellite in space, and just gets inspired, starts building rockets, becomes a NASA engineer training astronauts. And I saw that at 10 years old and was like, whoa, like, I want to design spaceships. That's cool. Like getting out outer space, trying to explore the unknown, answer the questions that no one has the answers to. And just as a little kid, I'm like space is awesome. So fast forward through, then it's like, okay, well, NASA is like the place to go, right? Now it might be SpaceX, kind of depends on where your mentality lies. But what was that, like 10 years ago? Like, okay, let's apply to internships at NASA. So it took me over 3 years and over 150 applications before I got my first NASA internship. That was a long journey. Just keep on getting like rejected or like not even hearing a response. It's just like I submit my applications and just like radio silence, nothing. But finally one came through. I went out to NASA Langley Research Center in Virginia. I did 4 months out there from September to December. And out there I was in undergrad, and I really realized that I did not have the right education to become a full-time NASA employee. So I got to go on to grad school. So I decided that Georgia Tech was the place I wanted to go, because the Aerospace Systems Design Lab is the only lab in the country that does what it does in terms of systems, complex engineering. So I applied to Georgia Tech and got rejected. But 3 weeks after that, I received a full ride graduate research assistantship with a stipend. They paid for my school and then gave me a job doing research along the way. So it's a lot longer story. I had to battle to get that. And after that, started doing research at Georgia Tech, and it's like, okay, it's NASA time, right? So let's apply to NASA JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab in California. They're the ones who do the Mars rovers, Cassini that was out at Saturn, Juno that's at Jupiter, and Voyager 1 and 2 that are out of our solar system. I'm like, that's like the frontier of knowledge right there. So applied to JPL, went through 3 rounds of interviews, the last one being flown up to California, spent 8 hours on lab, getting interviewed by panels, doing a presentation with a Q&A, only to find out like a couple months later that I didn't get the job. So I'm like, okay, all right, let's figure out what do I have to do to make this happen. So I graduated without a job. So it was 3 months before graduation I found out I didn't get the job. But I was able to obtain a 10-week internship from one of my mentors. And I'm like, all right, I will take this time to prove to them that they cannot live without me. So throughout the 10 weeks, I grinded, just wanted to really solidify a good reputation in the first couple of weeks. Then I went and I had over 30 interviews until on the last day of my internship, I received word that I'd be given a full-time job as a NASA employee. So to sum it up real quick, 3 years and over 150 applications before the first internship. Georgia Tech denied my application to grad school, then gave me a full ride plus a stipend. JPL turned down rejected me, told me I didn't have enough experience, and now I work on the most advanced mission that NASA has to potentially find life in our solar system, which we'll get into a little later, hopefully on Europa.
And I want to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned there too, and this is something that I believe is really inspiring for people that are out there like myself and others. And it's something that I always try to discuss in depth. Is that so many people go out there and push really hard, and they do everything they can, and they very nearly quit. And right around the time when they're, I have done everything I can do, I am going to move on, something happens. And you almost had that point a couple of times. What did you do to say, I'm done with this? I've done everything. Like 150 applications that's crazy. And you still kept pushing forward. And it just shows, but it shows it. And it reminds me of, I forget the astronaut's name, but there was an astronaut that had just continued to apply over and over and over again. And he went back and said, you know what, there's something missing, which is what you said. You finished grad school. He said, I realized that everybody was a pilot. So I went and got my pilot's license, and
Hernandez.
Yes, thank you. And I was blanking on his name, and I've shared his story a few times. Every time it goes on Facebook, it goes viral again. It just keeps popping up, and I love that because it's such a great story that you hear these stories and you think, all right, NASA, that it's got to be these people that are perfect and they nail it every time. But no, it's really big on people like you and doing this. So how did you mentally continue to push yourself when you kept hearing no, or almost worse than no, silence? What did you do to keep yourself motivated?
I went back to my why. The reason I was doing everything that I'm doing, October Sky. So I would rewatch that movie, or I would read the book, or reread the book Rocket Boys. And I'm looking down because I have the DVD copy underneath my TV that's in front of me. And I watched it. Like I still have the VHS. I would rewatch that movie. Whenever I felt doubt, whenever I was getting depressed, or kind of thought okay, not hearing anything from NASA, or I got a big test coming up, or homework's killing me. There's so much stuff I'm trying to juggle right now. It's like I've been down in the weeds. So it's like, take a step back, relax, remember where the why is. Like, what is the reason you got into this in the first place? What is the big picture? So I'd rewatch that movie and I'd come out and I'd be like, okay, all right, let's keep going. Like, he comes from a small town in West Virginia, Colwood, West Virginia, and he became a NASA engineer training astronaut. If you can go from a coal town boy to a NASA engineer training astronaut, it's like, I didn't start out that bad. I was in college already. Like, I didn't come from a coal town. Like, that story of showing his persistence and persevering through all his obstacles and overcoming all the challenges, I was like, there's no excuse for me to give up now, because someone who's had it worse off than me was able to get to that point in their journey, so I can do that as well. So by seeing it someone else's example and knowing that it was a true story, it inspired me to keep on going and pushing, and knowing that if I truly was passionate, dedicated, and hardworking enough, I could make it happen. It's just going to take time.
And I think it's something that so few people, whenever you think space, you don't necessarily think West Virginia, but that story is one of them. Hidden Figures is based on, one of the main character is based on someone who was from White Silver Springs, which is an area that I lived in for some time. Chuck Yeager's from West Virginia, Emily Calandrelli's from West Virginia, a more modern science communicator. And there's a lot of these people that don't necessarily realize that. And I think that's what's so important about those stories, is that when you think of us, generally, when you think of West Virginia, you think of hardworking people, but it's not the first thing that comes to mind. But it's something that's ingrained in so many people from that area is that want to work hard. And it's always great to hear somebody from another part of the country inspired from somebody from where I'm from. That's that always makes me happy. And I love what you said. You go back to your why. I do the same thing. I watch Cosmos. It's just, if I'm struggling right now, I'm trying to get through this class, and I will understand, this part of calculus, or I'll understand, this in chemistry. I just got to get past it. And you hear the way that I think there's something special about the way that entertainment or even edutainment has the ability to express it and communicate it, that I think inspires people like you and I to be science communicators, is that those words can sometimes be more inspiring than even seeing, I can go and see a launch and it really blew my mind, but it also doesn't connect me the way that seeing things in Cosmos does, or listening to Star Talk does. There's something about it that connects with me better. And I think it's great that there are these things out there that do that. And you said that, you continue to went with your why, and you continue to go with your why. and you continued to apply and you went through all these things. What did it sort of entail for you to get into NASA? What are some maybe words of advice that you have that for people that maybe want to work for them someday? This is what you have to go through. This is what it kind of took for me to be a part of JPL. These are some of the challenges I went through.
Yeah, I would say the big word there is initiative. Okay, so it's a huge demand. Like, a lot of people want to work at NASA. They want to work at SpaceX, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Aerospace Corporation, and any of these like high profile companies. You can go with Tesla as well, Amazon, Google. Is there's such a demand fleeing in. Like, a lot of people want to get into these institutions or these organizations. How do you set yourself apart from the other people? It's kind of like the same thing on the astronaut side. It's like they have the minimum requirements, but there's the minimum requirements, and then they're looking for the right stuff. They're looking for extra go beyond, so that's why we talk about pilot's license, ham radio, scuba certification for the astronauts. In my specific instance, it would be finding the skills necessary or the techniques and technologies that are at the forefront that these organizations are implementing or looking to implement. So one of these skills that I have is called MBSE, Model-Based Systems Engineering, which is a way to kind of coherently put a design together with a computer in a model so that there's a single source of truth of information where you can pull everything from. Everything's not kind of spread out in little different documents and different things here and there where you're sending stuff through email or telephone, back and forth, where we have everything in one coherent, consistent computer model. Is I saw that as a need that is a new way of doing design in the aerospace industry. And I'm like, if I can harness these skills, that is a need that NASA's looking for. So now I have a need, or they have a need. I have these skills that put me above the rest of the competition, and that's what was really able to bring me in. So it's going the extra mile to figure out what is it that they're looking for. You can be an amazing person. There's a lot of amazing people out there, but what's that edge that you're going to need to set yourself apart? So I took the initiative to figure out what are the new technologies coming in. I learned this on my own. I figured out like what courses you could take. I wasn't able to take those courses, reached out to the teachers, asked for their curriculum so I could take this course myself, found online tutorials. I learned like 6 different computer languages in the first 4 months of grad school. I had no computer languages going before that. And none of that is, classroom taught. It's all self-taught. So it's being able to get out there and increase your skill set and go beyond. So there's just with like such the demand, you need to set yourself apart some other way and to keep pressing on. So what they say is the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Cliche old phrase, but it's so true. Like, that is what got me into Georgia Tech. Is the Dean of Admissions finally told me essentially to shut up. I'm going to let you in the school. Stop bothering me.
Yep.
So it's like one way to do it is make sure you keep on pressing on, because there is so much of an inflow of applications and requests. Even when I was hiring interns, like, I would forget about some of the people that I've talked to just because there's so much information coming in your inbox, or there's just other realms of everything that's going on. So you want to keep on reminding, keep yourself at the forefront, make the calls, make the emails, reach out, network, go to different events, find a way to get a solid connection there and put your face with it. So if you can attend conferences, to go and then introduce yourself to people who are working in the facility that you want to work at in that specific group. You then have a name, a face, a handshake, and you're actually able to become personable with them and put a persona to the online resume or the email resume.
And I think that you make some great points there. It's getting out there and meeting people. I think whenever I first was introduced to this industry, I wasn't entirely sure how an outsider was going to be accepted into it, and it was something that surprised me by how open the science community is. Go out there and try and make those connections, meet these people in person, put a face to a name and shake hands and get to know them, because almost all of them have something that is going to inspire you in some way. Everybody that works at NASA that I've ever done an interview with, from David Newman, who was the deputy administrator of NASA, on down, are so impassioned and thrilled to talk about what it is they do. The director of NASA Astrophysics, same way, and then you have astrochemists and astrodynamicists, and everybody that does this are so passionate about it. They probably are just like you, and they're going to see that same thing in you. And it really helps to keep your drive up. Whenever you're starting to maybe get underneath what is, a mountain of homework, remember that these people went through it as well, and you've got somewhere to look, and you were specifically one of those. And it's something that you kind of do a lot with your social media. And one of the ways that you have really gotten out there, we kind of talked a little bit about the rocket scientist side, but fitness is also very important to you, and it's something that not a lot of people realize. If I am out in the world and I'm going and I'm hiking and I'm training to climb a mountain, I find I am much more focused. I am able to get so much more done, and it's something that so few people they almost try to separate it. Like, oh, you're a jock, you're in the gym, you're doing this all the time. They try to separate intelligence from physical fitness, and that is ridiculous. In fact, one enhances the other back and forth, and it is something you are a clear proponent of. So tell us a little bit about what fitness meant for you and maybe how it helped you out along this journey.
Oh, it's what kept me sane along the way, and it actually what enabled me to learn so much and to be focused and dedicated in the classroom and in the lab. Like when you're studying and you're going like super hard. So let's say the example I like to give is if you're working on a task, you're working on a problem, and you're up against a wall and you cannot figure out what is the next step, or there's a bug in your code, or something's just not making sense, and you've been at it for like, let's say 4 hours. You could continue to press on for another 4 hours and eventually figure it out. But if you take that break, you go for a run, you go work out, take that hour off, you will come back and you will finish that in, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes. Refreshed. Like some of the best ideas come like when you're in the shower, in the bathroom, or when you're not thinking about it. It lets your mind wander and be able to connect the dots that it wasn't able to connect before, because you get so down into the weeds. So by being able to extract myself from the situation, force myself to break breaks, I was actually able to come back and be more efficient and better at the lab, the homework, the career, and everything to keep that focus going strong. So along with being able to come back and be more efficient, it is the focus. Like when your body is in a natural exercise regime, you are releasing endorphins, you're happier, you're more focused, you don't need as much caffeine if you get your diet right, so that you're able to have mental clarity and awareness going through. So if you have someone who has a regular exercise regime and someone who doesn't have a regular exercise regime doing the same thing, the person without the exercise regime will feel more lethargic, less focused, unclear than someone who's regularly exercising. And that has to go with like our bodies. Like our brains are taxing, like they use a ton of calories just to think. So you want your body's processes to be efficient. They need to be operating on an optimal level so you're able to focus and have everything else in your body working on an optimal level. If your entire physiology process is not working optimally, then your brain, the most important weapon that we have, isn't going to be able to run through that process as effectively as it should. So for me, being able to take these breaks, or forcing myself to be active, to be healthy, to wake up in the morning at 4 or 5 sometimes, to go and get that workout before work or lab or classes, that is what actually enabled me to get to the position where I'm at. Because the studies also show that during exercise is actually the best time to learn something new. Second best time is immediately after exercise. So if you got a really hard class coming up, Ron, go for a run right before that class.
I hike a lot before I hike a lot before calculus, like pre-calculus. Before I go to that class, I'm going to go hit Red Rocks, and then I'm going to go to class because I am mentally taxed. And it's entirely different from getting up. You get up from a nap and you go to class, and you're sitting there, and you're going through a multitude of things. You're trying to figure out, all right, we're going to work on figuring out the diameter of the sun from these certain trigonometric, here's a few little hints. Figure out how wide the sun is. Good luck. And if you come in right from a nap, it's going to be entirely different than if you just hit the gym or you just went for a run and everything in you's moving. And I think that's really a great point. And I think it's such it's never focused on. It's something that's never really mentioned. And I love the fact that you were trying to put the two together of the importance of it. You don't have astronauts, or they want them to be in shape for a reason. It's that level of health that brings with it an improvement on your skills, and it's something that you don't hear about as much when you hear about the sciences. But I think it's something that's great that you exude in everything that you do, and it's something that you are so impassioned by that you have even followed up into major competitions. American Ninja Warrior, you did it last year, and you actually have it coming up again. So you're going to be in the new season as well, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah, we're filming. I don't know exactly when this is going to air, but we are filming March 6th and 7th. So I'm about 2 weeks away from competing. So we'll compete March, and it'll probably make air sometime in like the second or third week in June, I believe, if it's the same thing. But yeah, American Ninja Warrior season 10. Been training like crazy. Go to climbing gyms, still lifting weights, not as much. Tone back the weightlifting and really focus on functional movements, hit exercises, Tabata style stuff, interval intensity training. Feeling a lot more prepared this year than last year. Last year I was coming off of like just transitioning out of like the bodybuilding men's physique world. Still had like the aesthetic mind going on. I was still just like lifting weights to lift weights. Now with a whole turnaround of training, I've been doing like ninja, parkour, free running, climbing, functional fitness. My body just feels a whole lot more in tune and better, and I cannot wait to crush that course, get up to the top of the warp wall, and hit that buzzer. It's going to be awesome.
Well, I'm sure everybody out there is stoked to see it, and it is something that's a long time coming. And one of the things that I think that so many people, you hear about all the work that goes into things like, getting into JPL, getting into American Ninja Warrior. What's it like to finally get that phone call or that email or that text saying that you've made it? What's it, is it more than worth it? What's it like when you finally get hit with that, hey, all the hard work has paid off. I kind of get to live my dream now and get to live it for the foreseeable future.
It's great. Like to be able to harness that moment. It's like, it's a huge relief, is the first thing you feel. It's like you've pretty much been building up years of anxiety to get to this point, so it took me 16 years of anxiety until like that phone call came through, and I was like,
finally,
like I did it.
So,
like, that feeling is fantastic. All your hard work does pay off. But one thing I do want to caution people on, and I kind of fell into this myself, is when you achieve that dream, you reach that goal. It's like, all right, this is awesome. You do it, you live in it for a little while, and you're feeling great. But you got to make sure that you have another goal, another dream, another thing to keep reaching for. Because if you work for something for so long and then you get it, it's like, now what? So it's like when you're doing a trapeze or you're doing ninja obstacles, you swing from one thing to the next thing. If you don't have another thing to swing to, another thing to set your eyes on, whether it's just enhancing the prior goal that you have, something that's completely different, another feature of your life to improve upon, you need something else to keep on working towards. It's kind of like when you go into marriage. Like you're like, oh, when we get married, it'll be all great. Nope. Like when you get married, that's when it actually starts like being hard. Like that's when you actually have to work together and move forward. It's kind of like that with all the work and dedication I put in for JPL and for Ninja. It's like, okay, great, you got this. Now let's keep on trucking. So enjoy it, take the time, embrace the moment for sure. Don't just fly by it. But once you take it all in, realize that you have to keep on going and keep working. But the feeling that you get when you get that call, it's like, it's unreal. You can't really put it into words. Like the feeling I have, I'm kind of experiencing it right now. I'm thinking back.
You can tell by the look on your face. Yeah.
I'm thinking back to August of 2015. When I was sitting in my kitchen in Kaukauna, Wisconsin with my mother, and the phone rang and I saw Pasadena, California on it. Like I was told a call would be coming. I didn't know when it was, so it was still like up in the air. Then I answered it and I'm like, hello? And they're like, hey, this is, Stacy from NASA JPL. I want to let you know we have a job offer for you. I go, it's JPL. So like, once that call happened, put it down. It's just like the relief, the excitement, the happiness that you feel of everything that you've worked for paying off is all worth it. All the crap I had to go through, all the events I missed, the nights out with friends I didn't do, the other things, like
all the sitting there not doing it,
sacrificed, and it's so worth it. In the time, it might not seem worth it because you're like, oh, look at these posts on Facebook, look at this stuff on Instagram. They look like their life is great. That's a look of life. You can't judge someone else's life by their highlight reels. Like what
we all put out the best things possible. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
It makes it all worth it. So as much as the struggle is for a lot of you out there that are going through this stuff, I've been there and it sucks and you want to give up. But the moment that call comes, you look back at all that and go, that was nothing. Like I did it. Like it was so worth it.
And I think that's something that's so important to people out there, and it's something that you're trying to take and instill in other people as well, because that's another big thing that you're working on is your outreach, is that you're trying to pass these lessons on to people to kids in particular. And for one, I'm somebody that's an all ages STEM advocate, and it's something you certainly promote as well. But kids are our future. They're the ones that we want to say, hey, you can do this. I did it. You can do it as well. Let me show you how. Tell us how you kind of got involved in outreach and how it has become. I think it started kind of with NASA, and then you have just ran with it. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, when I came back from my first internship at NASA Langley back in 2012, I went to go visit my sister at her elementary school. She was in like 5th grade or 6th grade at the time. And my former 5th grade teacher was still working there teaching and inspiring kids. And she's like, oh, could you like give a little presentation on like what you did? And I'm like,
I sure can.
Yeah, totally. Like, yeah, that would be great. Anything I can do to help repay you because you've done so much for me. And so I spent it was the next day. I spent all night putting together this presentation, even like with my mom. We went and found pictures of me every single year from 1st grade until graduating high school and college to put up there and to show the kids. Like I was in your seats not too long ago. Mrs. Rogers was my teacher. So I did that presentation, and afterwards, like it's like that feeling is like coming back. Like when I got the call, it's just the amount of satisfaction or fulfillment that you feel that you've just inspired or you've helped to see the eyes light up on these like little kids' faces. Even some of the teachers and adults that were in the room, just it sent me on a holy crap. This is kind of like what you should be doing. You need to do a whole lot more of this.
Yeah,
not just affecting like yourself on a level of happiness and fulfillment. You are actually able to aid other people, like being of service to somebody else. So that's how it all got started back in 2012. Kind of took a little break during grad school because it was crazy, and I wasn't in the right state to kind of teach. Once getting into NASA, became part of the Speakers Bureau. Word's been getting around. People are just calling me and emailing me out of the blue, asking me to do things, reaching out through social media. Just like the feedback, I've been running with it and rolling with it because I believe that I've got a particular set of skills that is what is needed in use.
Sorry, that's all I have a particular set of skills.
That's needed in today's society with the youth just not being as focused or driven to the STEAM environment. The reference I like to put out there is a lot of people are too concerned, or a lot of the kids are too concerned with what's the latest thing on Instagram. What's Kylie Jenner doing, Kim Kardashian, Justin Bieber.
Isn't that the truth?
That's something that it kind of hits home on like just a sad level there. It's the idols that people are looking up to. I mean, there's a lot of people that look up to Elon Musk, and that's great because of what he's doing with like SpaceX and just pushing the frontiers of knowledge and boundaries on all those things. But it's sad that the United States has been dropping further and further and getting held back in the technology realm and science in general compared to the rest of the world. The U.S. is it's falling behind in STEM. There's a STEM crisis. Obama has talked about it, and so has Bush. It's just not being addressed well enough. I don't think there's something that needs to happen to change this, and I feel like I can fill that gap. Like learning, you and I grew up, we learned from Bill Nye Science Guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson, generation before us, Carl Sagan, Mr. Wizard. So I want to be one of those icons, one of those, I guess, I don't like to say icon, I want to be an educator. I want to be able to teach and expose kids who aren't normally exposed to this, to give them that information and then the desire to learn more. Because it's not that the teachers are worse. I hate when people say we need to have better math teachers, better science teachers. I don't believe that to be the issue. I believe the issue to be is that kids need a desire to learn. The best students out there, even myself, it wasn't that I had a great teacher. It was that I went home and I took apart the radio. I went home and I took this thing apart. It's not the things in the classroom. It's because I got inspired to learn, to want to learn more. So that is the effort that I'm trying to put into these kids, is to the innate desire to learn more and not just wait for someone to spoon feed it to them, but to take that initiative to get out there and figure stuff out on their own.
And that leads to the STEM mentor program that you are now doing. I actually was unaware of it until I went to your website, because something that you had actually been doing was fitness training. You had been helping people with that and kind of inspiring in that way, but now you're doing the STEM mentoring program. Can you give us a quick rundown about that before we get into the space stuff?
Yeah, so the STEM mentor program is something that it just kind of came into came into existence out of like what has been going on with my outreach and social media. So many kids and students have been asking me questions, asking for advice, and I'm like, okay, well, like the training thing wasn't really hitting as what I thought it would be, and it also wasn't as fulfilling. Like I was doing some training, I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. I felt that I should be communicating and working with kids more effectively on that aspect. And it's like you can reach out to me. We can either do resume work. I can do a little bit of tutoring. I can just help you kind of get clear on what your vision is of where you want to go. Like a lot of people are like, I want to work in space. I'm like, okay, cool. Do you want to be an engineer or a scientist? I don't know. I just want to work in space. I'm like, okay, that's great. That is great. But
we need to focus.
We need to get a focus. We need clear direction for you to be able to advise you in where you want to go. Do you need to do a master's degree? Is a bachelor sufficient? Do you need to get a PhD? What companies are you looking at? Do you have a specific company? Like, I don't care what I do. I just want to work for NASA. I'll be like, great. Well, NASA has engineers, scientists. They also have artists and designers. They have business professionals too. If you just want to be in that environment. So it's kind of a mix of a lot of things, no matter where you are in your stage of desire to get into STEM, even STEAM, for the artists and designers in there, in that industry in general. That's what I want to help you with. So you just shoot me an email at kevin.debruin@debruinenterprises.com, and we can get in a conversation, figure out what you're looking for. If you're looking to get more clear vision, if you're looking for specific help on a project, that one, or if you're looking to just pick my brain. I got a couple questions for you. How did you get into NASA? What are some good resources to use? It's a whole range of things. I don't want to limit it to anything. We can just iterate with whatever your heart desires to see how I can help you, because I want to be of service. That's where I feel fulfilled, and I feel that I can be of benefit to everyone out there who's just trying to find some way to get into that dream slot that they're looking for.
Hey, everybody, we hope that you loved part 1 with Fit Rocket Scientist, a.k.a. Kevin J. DeBruin. Make sure to like all his social media pages, follow him on YouTube, and, of course, do make sure to like and subscribe to the Stardom Interviews channel, and we will see you guys on the next interview coming soon.